Chicago Med Season 11, Episode 11 waters down powerful storylines and waste time with Ripley. Again. By author Jack Ory. Chicago Med Season 11, Episode 11 could have been something unforgettable. Instead, it felt mostly like more of the same stories we've cycled through again and again. And worse still, a third of the episode was dedicated to Ripley reconnecting with Lynn, which was the most boring personal storyline of the entire season. Chicago Med Season 11, Episode 11 offered a meaty return for Dr. Charles, but it felt like a rerun. I enjoyed learning more about Charles' past. His connection to the patient was fascinating, and it was clear that both he and her husband were the loves of her life. Still, as soon as Susie learned that she had a brain condition that required her to choose between an extremely risky surgery and losing all her cognitive faculties, I knew where this was going. Every tragedy is different, so theoretically this one could have still been powerful despite the outcome being so obvious, but it was hard to feel anything when Chicago Med has had some version of this heartbreaking story a million times. The chemistry between Charles and his friends was undeniable, and I loved that he both supported Susie's decision and understood Howie's reluctance to go along with it. And there is no denying that Mark Lynn-Baker was a powerhouse throughout the hour. We were passionate about every aspect of television and not shy about sharing our opinions. If that's what draws you to us, you love our newsletter. Hit the button on the top right to subscribe. Full confession, Perfect Strangers was my favorite show in 4th grade, and I always get excited when Lynn-Baker's name appears in the credits, despite how long ago that comedy was and how different the roles he plays now are. This one allowed him to show his dramatic range. Howie's anger at Susie for wanting the surgery, and at himself for having been resistant to retirement before she got sick was perfect, and his reaction to learning of her death was one of the most dramatic yet understated moments in this episode. If this hadn't been such a predictable plot point, it would have brought tears to my eyes. Maybe it's me. Ivy followed Chicago Med through all 11 seasons, and so very little surprises me anymore. But if I put aside the predictability, this was a solid plot that should have been devastating. Still, it fell flat because of how many times Chicago Med uses difficult decisions as shorthand for this character is about to die. Until recently, Abrams was my favorite love-to-hate character. He was this stereotypical arrogant head of neurosurgery whose perfectly constructed sarcastic barbs made him more entertaining than annoying. Where did that guy go? Do you prefer the more empathetic version of Abrams or the arrogant one? Let us know in the comments. Feel free to share this article so others can join in too. I was shocked that Abrams was so soft-spoken and empathetic, although that's been the trend the last few times he's appeared. Susie and Howie didn't add his vitriol, but he could have at last been sarcastic toward Charles in private. Archer's never been the warm and fuzzy type, and when he first showed up on Chicago Med Season 6, I could stand him. Steven Weber is amazing, but I wanted Archer gone ASAP because he was not only rude and arrogant, but also willing to play games to get around consent issues. He's softened considerably over the years, and is generally tolerable now, especially when he's with Hannah. But on Chicago Med Season 11, Episode 11, he was obnoxious again, and there did seem to be much reason for it. Archer was frustrated that his patient did want to listen to him. I get that. But berating the patient endlessly for his choice, and going as far as calling him selfish was beyond the pale, and it seemed like this was about more than simple frustration with a difficult patient. Are we supposed to assume that Archer is mad at the world because Hannah is acting on his obvious desire to be more than friends and co-parents? That would be unprofessional behavior. But if this motivation were explicit, at least it would make sense. The idea of a rodeo guy who felt like he couldn't do anything else in life was more interesting than this bickering, so it's doubly disappointing that those feelings were glossed over in one scene near the end. Hannah's rivalry with Dr. Kingston was at least hidden beneath professional differences rather than being completely obnoxious like Archer's treatment of this patient. Ripley and Lennox. Ripley and Lynn. I don't care which one he picks. Just move these relationships off screen, please. I swear, sometimes it feels like the writers are punishing the audience for not being Ripley-Hannah fans by putting Ripley in worse and even more boring romantic situations. A third of an episode dedicated to Ripley and Lynn sneaking around to try to scatter Sully's ashes was far too much screen time. This storyline seemed pointless. If we have to have Ripley, let's at least give him a medical story. What do you think, Chicago Med fanatics? Maybe some of you loved Ripley and Lynn or thought Archer was totally justified. That's cool. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Hit the comments with your opinions about Chicago Med Season 11, Episode 11, and don't forget to share this article with your friends so they can join the conversation. Vote in our poll below to rank the episode. No account? Register here, forgot password. If you enjoyed this article, Check out our coverage of other medical dramas like Brilliant Minds.